All right. So, welcome to episode number 16. Can you believe it? I can't. This podcast started last August, sometime over the summer last year when I was about to launch Healing of the Heart book, my first publication, my first book. And I can't believe a summer later, almost August, that this podcast is still going on. And there's so much to give thanks for. In fact, you know what? I think we're going to open up tonight by perhaps, reflecting on, I don't know, your past day, your past week, or several months, I don't know, past year. There's a lot to give thanks for, and it's important to reflect and to be thankful. There's a scripture that comes to mind that says, in all things, give thanks. It didn't say for all things, it just says in it, like in all things, give thanks. And that scripture has been really, really popping up in my heart a lot lately. It has helped me tremendously. Really, it has elevated my mood each time I think of it. So, as we continue, or as we begin, then I think it's important to reflect and to have this gratitude. Gratitude brings clarity. That's a post that I made this past week because it's true. This is why gratitude, thanks. I was able to really connect with that scripture and or that thought, if you will. Those words have so much power, and yes, and so I'm able to reflect and to give thanks. So there's a lot of things. I have to give thanks for. There's a lot, but if I had to choose in this moment, I want to say thank God for my family, meaning my husband and my children. I really have to say thank God for them. I don't want to do life without them. I don't. So I really give God thanks for my husband and my kids, my girls particularly, and my son James. He's in Jacksonville. I talked to him yesterday. Talked like a good 45 minutes. So proud of him. Really proud of him. God has been good. So I'm really thankful for my husband and my kids. They help to keep me grounded. They're not the easiest to live with. I'm pretty sure they would say the same thing about me. But you know what? I wouldn't trade them for anything, honestly. Sometimes I reflect and I think what my life would be like without them, like the quality of my life. I don't know. So in this moment, I just want to say, I'm thankful for my husband and my kids. And so, yeah. So what are you thankful for? Let's reflect a little bit. What are you thankful for? If you want to, you can always put in the chat. You can send that to me and let me know that one thing. Of course, I'm sure that there are several things that you're thankful for. And so maybe you can send me in the chat, perhaps, that one thing that you're thankful for. So if you're joining us this evening, first of all, I thank you so much for doing that, for choosing to spend your time for the next hour or so, talking, connecting as women. I love doing that. And I get to do that quite a bit. I really do. Sounds like I have an echo. That was an echo there. Okay, sorry about that. And so I get to connect with women every day, and I get to do it here in this podcast. And I'm so thankful for that too. Oh my gosh, like in so many ways, more than one. And speaking of connecting with women, we have a very, what should I say? I don't know, extraordinary, I believe. I feel like as women, we are extraordinary in our own way. And we have an extraordinary woman, Chinesum Arins from Lagos, Nigeria. You're going to hear my conversation with her. And so, I get to do this, and I get to do that with her, and we get to do that with her in this conversation. So if you're joining us, I thank you so much. But if you're new to this podcast, oh my gosh, we're so honored and privileged, right? As I say to the women and girls in the practice community, you privilege me. I say it all the time. Even to my team, I tell them, you privilege me, because you could have chosen to have gone anywhere else, and I feel the same, that you could have chosen to, spend your time differently this evening, but you're choosing to listen to this podcast. And even if you download the podcast, you're still choosing to listen and connect. So I want to tell you that I appreciate you, contributing, giving back to me, because if you're listening, then you're giving back. And I see the downloads, I see them, and that lets me know that we have a connection, and I appreciate you so much. I was just talking to another woman just a few moments before I got on. She's going to be our next guest. I won't tell you her name. I'll keep it a little bit of a surprise, just to keep the, I don't know what the word is, rather. keep the suspense, if you will, going. So she'll be our next guest in part 2 of Women Expressing Creativity coming up on the 15th of July. So excited for you to talk to her. I mean, it's just amazing what's happening with Healing of the Heart, coming out of Healing of the Heart book, and much to talk about there. But just wanted to do a warm welcome to existing listeners and perhaps new women and girls who are listening, or emerging adults, I should say. So thank you so much. Lots of love to you. I'm just really overwhelmed with gratitude right now, saying what I'm saying from my heart. And if you know anything about me or ever worked with me, you know that this is how I am when you're sitting on the couch. It doesn't change because I'm behind a mic doing a podcast. It's still the same. So welcome. So as always, those of you who have listened to the podcast before, you can skip this part, or now go grab your tea or something, because then I always give the disclaimer about what this podcast is and what it's not, right? So what it is, I like that. What it is that this is a place that's about curiosity, and in the work I often bring up these two concepts, judgment versus curiosity. Well, what do you think about that, or what comes to mind? I do it here too in this space. So this is a space where we allow curiosity. And I don't know what comes to mind or perhaps what feeling you get when you hear that word. I mean, try saying the word curiosity, honestly. So, what this podcast is creating a safe space for women and girls to be able to have self discovery, have honest conversation, take ownership, and heal, right? Did I cover that? I think I did, right? So, it's a space to what? Safety, exploration, self discovery, take ownership, and heal. And you know what's interesting? I see this over and over again. When we are on this healing journey, we have better relationships because we're no longer blaming or pointing the finger outwards or, blaming our parents. There's a difference between blame and responsibility. And, I find that in this past week, it never fails that in the work that I do, these two words come up. Well, this one word comes all the time, blame, and I have to spend time, really kind of showing the distinction between blame and responsibility. I find that when that happens, persons are able to shift this thinking and they're able to move, right, and be able to heal. So I am just kind of sharing that experience here to say that healing of the heart, right, helps persons to take ownership and responsibility for their healing. So then that moves over to what is not. I think, I alluded to that. What is not is pointing fingers. Because look, you're pointing fingers outwards and there's one pointing back at you. And when I say that, I say that with love and warmth because it's true. So what happens with blame, right? You point the finger at somebody else, is just what happens is not to dismiss or to diminish any trauma or hardship that you've experienced. But what it allows you to do is three things. So by taking ownership then and responsibility for your own healing, okay? So there's a difference between taking ownership and responsibility for what was done to you. That's different because obviously you did not inflict the pain. But what it is that you're experiencing the pain, and what you're responsible for is the healing aspect of things and making sure that, responsibility is, lies where it lies, okay? So, since this podcast and the show is not about blaming or pointing fingers, then because all that does is creates room for judgment, right? Blaming, pointing, and when those fingers come back at you, so what that does is perpetuate your own pain, inevitable pain, okay, on top of your existing pain. So, what it is not is what I just explained. Because then, if you can shift to curiosity, that allows you to ask questions, then essentially you're going to be honest, then, right? There's a safe space for you to be honest, right? And when we're honest during that time, we can also show ourselves self compassion, right? Yeah, self compassion. Gee, you know what? That's a hard thing, but I'm willing to ask questions and I'm willing to own my own healing and the process. It doesn't belong to anyone else. So first thing is what? Basically being honest with yourself, which is the exploration part that I talked about what it is earlier. And then, of course, there's honesty, because if you are not judging but being curious, then we can be honest because there's no pointing of fingers. And then from there, we can have radical acceptance, right? So acceptance doesn't mean that you agree, right? Because I don't agree about what happened, but I can accept that that did happen and I can move from that. That is what the show is not about, but what it is. So if you really notice what I did, I really focus on what it is rather than what it's not. So I hope you kind of caught on to that. It was a little slick. I do it all the time. But that's what this show really is about, you know? So I hope that, and I didn't cover another part. So another part I want you to think about too is, the things that we talk about can be triggering. As a matter of fact, when you listen to Chinasum might say something that might trigger you, all right? I always tell persons on this podcast, just like I do in the therapeutic space in the office, if something we talk about, because, hey, in our training, we're taught you can never not trigger somebody. It's not possible. But what we can do is, you can take the space to shut this podcast off. You can step outside, play some music, and there are different ways to ground yourself. Do some breathing, some box breathing. A couple episodes back, we've done some of that on here, and I always, introduce here, hey, check it out on YouTube, box breathing. There are different things that you can do to keep yourself safe, because that's our ultimate goal for you. So I covered what it is, what it's not. I explained to you how the podcast got started. And I always like to take a few minutes and do that, especially because, again, the podcast, they get downloaded all over, which this is a good time to express gratitude again. This podcast is being downloaded in New Zealand, in China, Philippines, all over the place. And I'm always blown away by that because, I don't come onto this podcast because, oh yeah, I want people all over the world to hear me because I'm this or I'm that. No, I'm nothing. Honestly, I say it all the time, and you all know that. And my husband says, hey, put value on yourself. I do, but what I'm simply trying to say is that, my heart's desire, my conviction is really about women having a different view about themselves, because I was that girl that did not have a proper view. It was terrible. Okay? And so my heart's desire is for women and girls to have a better view about themselves, because you're not broken, you're not defective. It's just the view of yourself tends to lend you to feel that way. And that's my goal, is to change that so we can have healthy, fulfilled lives, quality of lives, and quality relationships. And so that's the passion here at New Beginning Healing Institute, and the extension of that, healing of the heart. So I'm going to pause here. I always take right on time, 7:15, 7:16. I'm going to play a little bit more music. We're going to play this song so I have my podcast playlist for today. I like that the song by William Murphy, Same Grace. It's the same grace. The grace that he gives to me, he gives to you. I think this is a nice intro into the topic we're going to be talking about tonight: women expressing creativity, finding your voice in the face of hardship and adversity. So how about Same Grace? I like this. So check this out. We're going to transition, right? Same Grace. I like that song. This week I was driving home, and actually I went running to the park with my daughter Kyra. So after all these years, she's finally joining me running, because I lift weights. If you've seen of my posts, I like those things. And so I went running Thursday night, and I was coming back on my cool down, and this song just hit me. I'm like, you know what? That song I'm going to play. Well, I tell you what, I think it's a good time to transition into listening to my conversation with Chinazum Arraigns from Lagos, Nigeria. And before I even play the conversations, let me just tell you a couple of things. It's a pre-recorded conversation, because Lagos, Nigeria is 8 hours ahead of us. So bless her heart, she would love to have come on and do the live with me. But if that were the case, because right now in Lagos, it's 2:00 in the morning. And so she was gracious to have met with me yesterday via Zoom. Man, I love her accent too. She says, oh, because, I'm from Jamaica. She's from Lagos. And I'm like, I like your accent. She says it's the same. I'm like, no, it's not. But anyway, so Chinisam Arins has her company. Well, in our country, this country would say Fortune 500. Over there, her company is called Auto Girl. She's also a lawyer in Lagos. So basically, we were drawn to each other's space on LinkedIn, and It just we just clicked, and she's all about empowering women and girls, but she does it in a different way. And this is the thing, I want you to hear from her, the obstacles that she's had. This is so powerful, the things that she's had to overcome, and basically how she got here. Because look, history is replete with how women, especially women of color, the obstacles, the hurdles, and well, in our conversation, you hear her address that. But this fight still goes on, and we need all of us to be on this journey, and what each person is doing about it. Just like our, well, I'm not going to say much more, but our ancestors, right? What they had to do. So now, what are we going to do? And I think it's time that I play that now. So I'll do that now. You're going to hear us warming up in the conversation. I was so nervous. I really was. I was nervous talking to her. So I did, edit a lot of the audio. I think I know that Shinazama is not on because she's sleeping, but I promised to send this podcast to her, or she can download it too. But you're going to hear us talking about, some music and just warming up in the conversation. And I'm just going to let this roll. I'll pause it at different places so I can, comment. We can talk about it a little bit. And there's some other pieces that I want to interject in this conversation. So here we go. That was a little bit loud. If you probably was a little bit loud, I had to turn that down. Can you guys hear my nervousness in there? We're going to continue that. So it looks like, from what I'm hearing, thank you, Goddess Energy, that you guys are not hearing the podcast. You guys are not hearing the conversation between Chinazam and myself. So I'm going to take a 5 minute break. I'm going to play some music, and I'm going to sort that out so you can hear it. Thank you for letting me know. So let me play some more music. Thank you for your patience. Hear what I just played?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's the clip.
Uh, okay.
So I'm trying to turn the volume down. That's great. Oh my gosh.
Nice.
So
Okay.
that's Chinasum, and that was me warming up to her. I was so nervous.
Oh,
I think you heard me say that earlier, and so now
I
she's
know the song, but I don't really know who sang it, but I
I love
definitely know
the
the
accent. So now
song.
she's. I can't skip this part, guys, but bear with me. I had
Mhm.
edited this so you guys can hear the conversation fully, full fledged, like the meaty part of it. But because I'm having difficulty on this end, bear with me. It's worth listening to though, so hang tight with me. Here we go. You're gonna hear this first piece
Mm,
warming up, and she's getting into the
nice.
questions. So hang on.
Oh, wow. That's really
That's great.
impressive.
Goddess Energy. Thank you. You're
That's,
awesome. Thank you. I have to clap you. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Goddess Energy.
mm. I love how global Afrobeat is getting. It's getting the well-deserved attention right now. Mm. Mm, my
So I
favorites.
was asking her about
Okay.
her favorite music. She's responding.
I love Burna Boy. I love Burna Boy's
I love
music.
her accent.
Is another yes, Burna Boy is a mainstream Afrobeat artist. I used to like Wizkid's music. The latest release, I'm not really in love with it. Unlike in 2020, in unlike his last album,
She's
I've
sharing with
forgotten
us.
the name. I think
I
it's
asked her
Soundman or
about,
something
some
like that.
favorite
Amazing. I really
Afro
like that
beats.
one. And then his first
So
album
she's sharing
that
us with
had
us
collabs
who
with
those
boy.
artists are that she likes.
Then
So I'm
which other
getting to know
artists
her.
do I really like? Those are my two. Then when I really want to relax, I love Damian Mali. Like I love his song. I love his sound. Yeah. So yeah, those are the guys that I really like currently.
So we're pausing, and I'm going to ask her more questions about, introducing her to the show and basically, what brought her on and what's motivating her
Okay.
to talk to the podcast. So there we go.
Sure. So. Mm-hmm. I do. Yes. It's actually 8 o'clock, 3 minutes after 8.
So she's explained that she's 8 hours ahead of us, and that's why we did the pre recording. And so she's going to give us more of her time now.
Wow. Hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Are you guys still able to
Mm-hmm.
hear her? I'm going to pause here and I'm still going to, those of you who are hanging in there with me, awesome. I'm going to play a little bit more music and see if I
Mm-hmm.
can speed this up. Okay, guys?
Definitely. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Chichi Arinze. I'm the founder of Autogirl Limited. Autogirl Limited is a digital vehicle leasing platform that helps people move from point A to point B in Africa. What makes us special is that we help people in Africa monetize their vehicles on our platform and in turn rent it out to people that needs, reliable and efficient mobility. While doing this, we also support women by making sure that women are empowered to enter into the automotive industry, which is actually one of the most male dominated industries. So we basically train women to learn how to earn in the automotive industry, and that's our CSR part. But majorly, what we do is we rent vehicles and we help people monetize their vehicles. So I am a lawyer by profession, but I no longer practice. Yeah, yeah. But I no longer practice for now because of my project with Auto Girl. So that is really taking up all of my time. So that is all I'm focusing on right now. And yeah, that's me. Oh, about what I like, I love meeting people. I love swimming, and yeah, basically that. I love meeting people. I love swimming. I love listening to music, and I like watching funny movies. So yeah, that's me. Definitely. Sure, I'm available.
So, guys, I'm having a delay in the conversation due to the audio
Mm-hmm.
issue, but
Mm.
it's going to keep going. So just bear with me a little bit. It's going. It's going. It's a great conversation, guys. Hang in there with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking her questions. You can't hear me asking her, but just listen to her response. That the response is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah. So the topic was, very, very interesting to me because I am always, about getting other women to, not be timid, to know that they have a place in the society and they can actually do like mind blowing stuff. So when I saw the topic, I'm like, okay, yeah, I definitely would like to, be part of this and talk in this podcast and on that topic. So that's really, really what interested me. And then when I went through your page and saw all the other things you do and your posts on your different, series and every other thing. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is something I would like to be associated with. So yeah. Oh, great, great. Yes. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those of you who are still on, I appreciate you so much. So the podcast, the audio
Mm-hmm.
is delayed significantly, and I'm so sorry. I did not expect these technical issues as much as I prepared,
Mm, yeah.
but she's still
Yeah.
responding.
And
I'm
I
just
think that's really important because, like you said, at a certain age, every decision you make actually, every decision you make actually breaks down to what your life is actually going to look like by the time you want to be relaxing, and what your future is going to look like. So at that stage, it's very important that they understand that okay, there are certain decisions you can make. It's important that they also let go of any bias because over here in Africa, and I think also all over the world, actually, not just Africa, in Middle East, in some even in America, some people are always think like that, okay, women are kind of like second class citizens, or women cannot achieve a lot of things, or women are just meant to be at home and all of those kind of things. And I'm really happy that you're helping a lot of young women understand that no, there's a lot more that you can do, there's a lot more that they can achieve. So if I only pass on that message to these young girls, I am definitely fulfilled that there's a lot more you can do and you can achieve anything that you decide to achieve.
So I'm almost going to stop the audio and this podcast because the delay is so bad, and I know some of you have jumped off from the podcast because you're probably frustrated as I am. But I'm going to see this through, and I'm going to give it a few more minutes for her to talk, even though it's delayed. What I'm going to also do is copy the link and put it in the
Mm-hmm.
podcast itself. Oh, she's continuing. So there's a delay again. But it was so good to talk to Chinazam, basically talking about, her launch to Auto Girl in Lagos, Nigeria. And I had asked her some key questions that I really wish that this audio was better, better interfaced with Podbean. And it looks as though that's not
Okay.
the case. And she's still
So
answering.
when I entered into university, I grew up with a fairly rich home. But when I entered into university, my family's income kind of like reduced like drastically. So I had to figure out, ways to like, earn money and all of those things. And of course, as a lady, the first thing that will come to your mind due to like, the whole socialization and everything is, oh, a guy, let me date someone rich and let him be giving me the money and all of that. But I got to find out that that would only tie you down to people that and might not even be worth, your presence or worth a relationship with you. And then I started thinking of, okay, how can I get this money for myself? Like there should be ways for me to be able to, make money. And I found my paths in what I do by looking through my hobbies. What do I like? And I absolutely love cars. I live for cars. So when I thought about, okay, what line is, I absolutely love cars. I absolutely love cars. Yeah. So when I thought about the best thing for me to do to make money, it just had to be cars. So yeah, so it's been fun. And that's basically how I advise anybody to that would be in that kind of situation to look at things.
And we're delaying again. I was asking her now about perhaps any mental health impacts or difficulties she had, while she was
Exactly.
trying to figure out her way.
Mm-hmm.
She's answering me. You guys can't hear her. I'm still not giving up on this podcast. Just bear with me and listen to her response.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She's answering me. And after she answers here, I'm going to stop the recording that you can't really hear, and I'm going to just kind of, round out and finish this podcast
Okay,
this evening.
so before I just felt like there's a certain amount I had in my head, which now is infinitely smaller to me because I'm like, why was this a goal? That if I had this amount of money, I am
I asked her what
set
to
and I'm
define success.
successful. But right now, I'm looking at success in a very different way. Money can be made and be lost at any time, and of course, I'm not saying that money is not important; it's extremely important. But right now I'm seeing that, oh, the relationships I make, the relationships I keep, the kind of friends I have, the people that I am able to impact their lives, that they can say and point to me that, oh, at a certain time in life I didn't know what to do, and this was the person that helped me out. The women I have been able to, show how to earn money in the automotive industry, having like maybe 50,000 or 10,000 of those women know my name and say, oh, this person actually helped me, start earning money, would really, would be success for me. Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to stop the audio there. Oh my gosh, you know what? I don't know if Chinasama is listening. I think she's sleeping in Lagos right now. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But I want to thank all of you listeners this evening who've been so patient. I want to thank Goddess Energy who was on. There was another person who was on that was, let me see her name. Beatrice Teti. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. My apologies for this audio issue. You've been very patient, very, very patient. I hope you will download this podcast back so you can hear parts of what Chinasama and I were talking about, finding a woman, expressing creativity, finding her voice. And so I'm going to stop the recording there because I'm not able for you guys to hear the interaction between she and I, which I'm so disappointed myself. You probably heard it in my voice, but in the face of disappointments and hardships, we're still going to forge our way through. And so this podcast, this is an example of those things that are out of our control and things that happen. And so I'm going to pause here, but then I'm going to come back and kind of wrap up or give summary as to what Chinisam, responded. I'll give you her story in terms of her hardship, and perhaps I think she mentioned some of that. But I'm going to pause here and play a little music. We're going to come back, and I'll wrap up what she and I talked about, and I'll kind of give you some more updates about what we're doing here at New Beginning Healing Institute, of course, / Healing of the Heart. So we're going to pause now and play some more music, and we're just going to work through our disappointment this evening. It's still a podcast. We're still having fun together in the face of what's happening. And I want to be that example. I want to be that example. And so what are we going to play? We're going to Better. I like the song by, I just stumbled upon her, Jessica Reedy. Her song is titled Better. It came out in 2014, unbeknownst to me. Again, when I was running this week, this song, this just came up in my feed, and I think you'll enjoy it too. That things will get better, and I think now is a good time to play that song. Here we transition after the rough first half. So yeah, life will get better. It depends on the mindset that you have. So I'm deciding that life is going to get better, and I hope that you're agreeing with me. So in that vein, life is going to get better. When I was driving home today, so I'm going to switch. We're going to talk about how I found my voice. So I wasn't able to really share from the audio with China's on myself how she found her voice, and I think I'm going to go in different directions. So we're going to talk about how I found my voice, and which is so cool because everything happens the way that it needs to. So when I was driving home today, today was an awesome day. We had our week session number 3 from our teen girls summer support group, and man, that group is exploding. But as I drove home, I had this inspiration that popped in my heart, and I know that the Lord placed it there. And the question that came to me was, what would you do? Would you do what you're doing even if you didn't get paid? That's what came to me as I was driving home. And the answer is emphatically yes. I would definitely do it. And the truth of the matter is there are times then that I've worked in this practice and I did not get paid. And as I reflect on those times, those were times of testing. Do I really want to do this? And I do. Um, and so, one of the things that Chinazam talked about when, understanding that as a woman, particularly a woman of color, how, our obstacles They vary, but nonetheless, they're still obstacles. And simply, there are things that get in the way. In the audio from her, she talked about how patriarchy is alive and well in the world today, and it's no different. It's particular in the African culture. And Lagos, she talked about when she's a lawyer by vocation, but and I like that because I also went to law school, and it wasn't for me. That's not where I found my voice. And incidentally, she was sharing the same thing. Yeah, I have a law degree. I'm not even practicing right now. I'm not sure if you heard that part of the clip, but she was saying that's not what she wants to do. And she reached back inside herself, right? And she began to explore and ask questions. Remember, that's one of the core or tenets of this podcast and this work is ask questions, be curious. And she said she had to find out from what she enjoyed doing, what she was going to do with her life. Okay, so now, from her cultural background, being a lawyer is important, just like my culture. Being a lawyer, a doctor, a policeman, a nurse. You probably read that in the book Healing of the Heart. If you have, if you've purchased the book, you know how culturally, we call those cultural files. If you work with me, I spend a lot of time talking about the intentional side versus the internal side. And the internal side is what was put in. And those cultural imperatives that are put in says you're going to be a lawyer. Chinasum had the same experience. And while that was good for her in terms of, for her future, in terms of, having a secure financial future, that's not what she enjoyed. And so she had to reach back to find out, what is it I really want to do? And she loves cars. And she decided to basically go into this automotive business. And of course, being a lawyer helped her because the legal aspect of things. So she was armed with, a particular knowledge that helped her or guided her into her business. But basically, the love that she has was for cars. I wish you could see her profile. You could see that on her cover, she's sitting on a car actually. So one of the things that she really conveyed was how to find your voice, and I like that. And how she found her voice by was taking a look at what she likes and what brought meaning for her, what brought joy to her, what would she continue to do if she didn't get paid, and this is it. But luckily for her, she's making good money over there. She has a Fortune 500 company in Lagos, Nigeria. So how she found her voice, I thought was important to relay. And I'm going to parallel back with me. So how did I find my voice? I found my voice through my own pain. So my own pain, from growing up, different parts of my life, that's how I found my voice. And, this finding of my voice gets strengthened every day, which is why I asked the question. I'm like, you know what? What you're doing right now, would you continue to do it if you did not get paid? That's something to consider. I was listening to a report the other day that says I think 80% of Americans are doing jobs that they would prefer not to do. Okay? They're doing jobs that they prefer not to do. And I mean, I find that very interesting. And that makes sense, right? Because I mean, society is set up where you have to make money, you have to, you have to do, you have to put a roof over your head, you have to make a living. But so many people are making a living, but they're really not finding their voice. And as a woman, a lot of times we find ourselves, doing, work or by our vocation or whatever it is that we're doing. But somehow, sometimes, you're a mom and a wife, and you can't even find your voice even in that. And so, so she was talking about, there's so many thoughts running through. She was talking about how when she decided to go into the automotive world, how a lot of men, really, they put a lot of obstacles in her way. They did. And, they did that in various ways. Sexism is still a real deal, sexism is real. Discrimination is real. The quid pro quo is real. And so she faced those obstacles while getting in. One of the things she talked about too is how to strengthen your stance or your decision when you're finding your voice. And one of the things she said was to arm yourself with knowledge. And I like that. Because remember, number one, we're women. That's the first thing. We're female. Okay. Next thing, female of color. Okay. And then the economic background. So There are a lot of different things that society will use to say, well, that's the obstacle, and you stop there. So, one of the things that she mentioned too that you didn't get to hear was when she talked about making sure you arm yourself with knowledge. Well, for some of us, that may mean retooling. That may mean going back to school. That may mean getting another skill, maybe getting another certificate. That might mean working on the self because you can do all these things, right? These technical things, but the emotional part of things we don't do. And so we can have 3 PhDs or know a second language and have all these things done, but we're still not doing anything with it, right? And on top of that, we have the patriarchal system. We have the systemic things happening in our environments that really is impactful, and we're still not able to find our voice. And so, yeah, I just mentioned about, yeah, the emotional piece that we still need to work on. So, you know what? I have a question for you. So, what's getting in the way of your inspiration? What's getting in the way of you finding your voice? What is that, right? One of the things that came up tonight as we're talking is, when we're talking about what this podcast is not, I feel the need to go back here and say, blaming is not healing. If we're stuck emotionally while we can't find our voice, then let me tell you, that's a big, big, big obstacle for some women that I work with and have worked with. Is that blaming themselves, blaming others. It just doesn't work, right? So sometimes finding our own voice, we stop ourselves because we blame. But, I wonder if this is a question that can help lead someone to finding their voice. The question is, what's getting in the way of your inspiration? What's getting in the way of you finding your voice, right? And so I'm gonna pause here, and I want to read a quote. It's a quote by women. I found this website. It's called Girls That Create. It says it's 10 quotes for creative women, and this was back in January for International Creativity Month. And this is by Ava DuVernay. I hope I'm saying her name correct. And one of her quotes is that it says, "Don't wait for permission to do something creative. Don't wait." Right? Don't wait. Don't wait to work on yourself. Don't wait, right, to stop blaming. Just start now. Start now, Here's another one I want to read to you. Then I'm going to read to you a poem from Healing of the Heart book. It says here, there's one that I really love that I came across. It's by Kusama Painter, right? She's a contemporary artist. Her Yayoi Kusama. Yayoi Kusama. I'm not sure. She's an African artist. And this is her quote. It says, "Every time I have had a problem, I have confronted it with the acts of art." Right? So here are different women that they have obstacles in their way when they're trying to find their voice and when they're trying to create. In other words, this woman is saying she's using her hardship, she's using her difficulty to create art. She just doesn't stop with the problem or with the obstacle. So yeah, we've been pushed around for histories, right? For centuries rather. We've been pushed around, we've been this or that. But what are you going to do? Chinasam decide that she's going to propel her desire and the hardships and the patriarchy. She's going to make it work, and she's going to create art. And she did that by starting her company, Auto Girl. And too, when I was talking to her, she talked about how the women that she has inspired, how a lot of them have gone on to creating their own brand. They're doing their own thing. So this is what it's about. When you can inspire women, you can, really just kind of launch yourself, and the impacts from launching yourself and the impacts that it has on other women, helping other women to find their voice. Chinasam does that through Auto Girl. I find that to be tremendous and amazing. I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to read from the book, Healing of the Heart, my book, Blaming is Not Healing. Because, sometimes, again, when we have emotional blockages in our lives, it really stops us from finding our voice. So we have our internal stuff, and then we have the external stuff going on. But truth be told, you really have to start from the inside. So I'm going to read this poem. Then I'm going to play a little bit more music. We're going to end at 8:30 since we lost a lot of time. And I definitely want to make sure that, this podcast is meaningful and is productive. And so I still am able to give back to you and help someone who's listening to this podcast. And so blaming is not healing. If you have the Healing of the Heart book, and also when I come back from, when I read the poem and play this music, when I come back, I want to wrap up by sharing, my own transformation while I am still developing my voice, talk about my transformation and give you some updates from Healing of the Heart and the big news. Yes, I did say big news. Blaming is not healing. And actually, I said it wrong, incorrectly. True healing is not blaming. And that's on page 38 of the book. And this is a good time to give a shout out to those persons who have reviewed the book on Amazon. Man, thank you so much for sharing your heart. And those who have given me feedback personally, really thank you so much. This reciprocity in this process in me, finding my voice when I did and my voice keep being developed and me helping other women to find their voice. This is meaningful. And, Chinazam was defining success. And, we all define success differently. And I have to tell you that part of my success is being able to use my voice to help women to find their voice. I'm very passionate about that. If you've ever worked with me or listened to any of these podcasts, you know that this is true. So let's turn to page 18 now from the book Healing of the Heart. And if you're interested in finding this book, it's Poetry and Prose Workbook. It's on Amazon and it's titled Healing of the Heart, Lessons from My Journey. So I'm going to read now. And you know what? I'm going to play a little music in the background while I read this poem to you. I think I'm going to play this one. It's called Pray. No. All right. So, I don't know. Did you get a chance to listen to the words of True Healing is Not Blaming? I hope you did. And I hope you found some inspiration and healing in those words, because words are very powerful. And I don't know. Did you give some time to also, as you were listening to those words, to reflect on perhaps, what's getting in the way of your inspiration of finding your voice? And if you found your voice, are you still on the journey or did you stop? Right. So, so let's transition. We're winding down this podcast, and again, I know that we've had some difficulty, but we're forging through, and we're forging through to the very end. And you're probably wondering, how come this podcast plays a lot of maybe spiritual music or Christian music? And I gave some thought to that. Why? Because a few people have said to me, your podcast is a little different. I like it. And it's so funny when they say that to me, and I'm now making a confession here, is that, and we're talking about finding my voice. I'm still developing my voice. I want you to know that because, growing doesn't stop. It continues to the day of, to the end. I want to continue to grow. So just a note here that your voice will continue to develop and it will change. And my voice has changed since I found my voice. I'm losing my voice. But, I've been going through my own spiritual transformation. I was in Greece. Some of you know that I haven't done a podcast in about 3 weeks or so because I've been away. And you probably saw my recent video about, my failure. So let me just kind of summarize. Basically, my own transformation has been about faith. My faith has been strengthened in the face of my own hardship as I'm developing my voice. And my voice comes through in different ways. It comes through my work in the practice. It comes through my work, in the podcast, and it comes through my book. And this book had several delays, several issues, and it has taught me to really, dig my heels in, because, the work I do comes out of the pain and out of those convictions. And so, it's meaningful to me and to others. So that's how I know I'm on the right path. Okay. It's not so much about, likes on social media or likes by people. It's what's on the inside that matters. And that's why it's important in that poem for you to get quiet on the inside so you can hear what really matters. And while I was away in Greece, I have to tell you, I had a chance to quiet. I didn't do any podcasts. I didn't do any media posts as such. I was quiet and I had a chance to hear And
Bluetooth disconnected.
what I heard was faith.
Bluetooth connected.
What I heard was faith. I'm not sure what's happening to my Bluetooth. What I heard was faith versus force. So, faith versus force. Faith is very different than force. When I talk about force, I'm talking about the kind of energy that I lead with, the way my heart feels when I'm doing this work. And when this book was delayed several times, going on Amazon and just different parts of the process, I felt like I was forcing. I felt like I was not having faith. I felt like I was doing it in my own energy and strength. And it didn't matter what I did, it was still delayed. It's not until I was away that I understood that faith was more important, because when I can hear, right, when I can have faith, when I can give thanks, that's when I have more clarity. And being able to be thankful and having gratitude really sharpened my faith, well, then made me hear and have clarity about what I need to do next. And that's also part of how I find my voice, how I develop my voice. So I'm sharing that because I think it's important for women and girls to understand that, you know, the kind of energy that you have on the inside, your emotional energy is important to your spiritual energy. They're connected, they're one and the same, okay? By the way, the second book is underway. I just hinted to it, your spiritual energy and your emotional energy, they're one and the same. And so, where does my energy come from? So, what I'm about to say is going to be awkward. Let me play the awkward button. Okay. And so, so my faith comes from God. And I have to tell you, I realized that when I started this podcast, I had difficulty saying, because I realized that a lot of different people listen to me. But you know what? I realized this podcast is not for everyone. And my voice comes from somewhere, and my voice that it is very spiritually based. And I love Christ. I love Jesus Christ. And he is the center of my life and my work. And in my practice, I don't even mention that unless my client identifies the same way and they give room to talk about this. Because I do not proselytize my clients. It's unethical. I don't do it. But on this podcast, in what I do, I have to be able to let this part of my voice, be expressed. Because I have to tell you, this is where my faith, the source of my faith. I have to tell you that when my faith is connected, my emotional well-being is connected. And I have to tell you, my energy, my swag is different. I'm not lying. My swag is different. So it's awkward, I know, but it is. And, it's been a struggle for me. I've been trying to figure out, how to say it on this podcast. And it's so fun. It's not like I'm really hiding, because even in my work, people will say, "Are you a Christian? Are you're spiritual?" And I say to myself, I wonder what made them ask that, because I don't talk about that per se in my office. I mean, because again, making sure there are ethical lines and boundaries there. But yeah, I've been struggling with that part of my voice. So maybe you're struggling with certain parts of your voice. I don't know. But what I learned was in that struggle taught me what I needed. And what I needed was to be honest, right? I need to be honest with myself and continue to be honest in my work. And, those people who are meant to be a part of this will be a part of this, and persons who are not will not, because it was not meant to be so. And so, I don't know. I don't know who needs to hear that, but if you're struggling to find your voice, again, what's getting in the way? I'm summarizing and winding down, right? Or if you have found your voice, what parts are you still struggling with? And you know what? Pay attention to that struggle, because in that struggle is the answer, is the lesson, is the nugget, which leads me to, we have 8 more minutes. I'm going to pause and play one more quick song. And then when I get back, I'm going to give you the big announcement, and then we're going to close. So here's our next song. And I'm excited about this one. What am I going to play? We're going to play Peace of Mind. How about that? So now, the big news, the big news, the big news, the big news. I'm telling you, the big news. So when things go wrong, remember, the struggle, there's a lesson, there's a nugget, there's an answer. So I'm beginning to understand the delay for Healing of the Heart, the book. you know, I understand. The delay is for this. The news is that Healing of the Heart, well, New Beginning Healing Institute, my private practice, we're now transitioning to becoming a nonprofit. Yay! I'm so excited. I mean, like, I like that. Yes. And so, Healing of the Heart, the book now, is centered on this nonprofit taking off and its launch. So, with that said, we're relaunching. We're relaunching Healing of the Heart. We have yet to have a book signing, so we're going to have this culmination. So, I want to share with you that if you're interested to being on this relaunch team, and let me explain to you what that looks like. So, right now we're underway. The paperwork is in. We're becoming a nonprofit. We're going to be New Beginning Healing Institute, doing business as Healing of the Heart. Totally excited. The team, we're very excited about this transition. We have some new people coming on board. I would love to say her name tonight, but I didn't get permission from her. She is going to be supporting me. She's going to be my right-hand person with this new nonprofit. And the next podcast, I'll tell you who she is. I might even have her on. We'll see what happens. But there's a lot of things taking place. Our groups are amazing. The teen group today, the women's group, the Women's Connection Collective, that's just exploding. And then, of course, our fall group coming up, our Women's Self-Esteem and Self-Improvement group coming up in September. So a lot of different things are taking place within New Beginning Healing Institute. So yes, this book was delayed because it was meant to coincide with this new nonprofit, because we see the benefit of helping women and girls develop a positive self-esteem. We see the difference in family therapy. We see the difference in families. We see the difference in our teens. And so we really want to continue this work forward. We want to expand it out, and we're going to. And we see no other way, no other path to do that. And this delay of Healing of the Heart made that very clear. And so we're taking heed and we're moving right ahead. And I'm just going to say, so as I close, so if you want to be a part of our relaunch team, so this is what the relaunch team does. And if you participate, any proceeds from Healing of the Heart is going to go directly to this new nonprofit with its name, New Beginning Healing Institute, DBA, Healing of the Heart. So if you want to be a part of our relaunch team, just send me your email address. And my email address is k.henry@nbhi-llc.net. And so if you get on our relaunch team, what it simply means is that you are going to go to Amazon. You'll get updates from me about the book. You'll learn where to find it on Amazon. We'll ask you to review the book. We'll ask you to give us feedback on what parts of the book that you like, and you also share the book. So currently I have two lists. I have the Practice Community Relaunch Team, and persons have given me permission to do that. And then I have a Friends and Families Relaunch Team. And so it's really important that it's done that way to keep things nice and clean and ethical, right? So we're doing things proper. And so this is an opportunity for persons who listen to Healing of the Heart podcast. We want you to be a part of this. We really, really do. And so I invite you to, send me your email address if you want to be a part of this launch team. We have so many exciting things coming up with this launch of this new nonprofit. So once again, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast this evening. Thank you for just taking the time and just being so patient. Those who had to leave because you're frustrated, I get it. I understand. But I hope you listen to this podcast and you download and get the most important parts that were, missed, and perhaps that you can relate to and that you can share. We're going to end with this nice song from our podcast list this evening. I'm going to play what we started with. Have a good night, guys.